And it is Friday. And good evening, everybody. Um, I should imagine Eric won't be far behind us. That's a
Probably not.
regular, by the way. He's from States. Whereabouts is he from now, Eric? I can't remember.
Oh, he has said many times.
Yes, as well. That's how much notice we take. But yeah, for anybody that is there, I'm sure he'll let us know if anybody
Yeah,
turns up.
I will
But
do. It's usually
for
quiet for me.
anybody that's going to watch it on catch up, even tonight we've got a guest. It's Jen Kruse. She's been doing this for a while as well. Um, I think you said that you were doing radio though, weren't you? And then you've just gone into visual mood.
We always had visual mode too. We would record on Skype and then I'd put the video up on YouTube after the live show. But we were audio only on the network. So, but we just left our network a few weeks ago and just have gone live on YouTube. So we're getting
Brilliant.
that going.
Good, good.
Yeah, we have Darla in the chat. Hello, Darla.
Yes, good
Ciao.
evening, Dale.
Love you.
I'm surmising she's one of your fans.
She is. She is. Darla
Yeah.
is awesome.
Hi,
Evening,
Noreen.
Noreen. She's one of our fans. um, yeah, it's good. I think it's brilliant. And as I say, even just these people that putting the name up and saying hello, we always acknowledge because, like I've said, well, if it makes them feel welcome, that's what it's all about.
Exactly. Hi, Darla.
Um, So, to start, could you tell our audience when you first realized that you had gifts or
Sure. Yeah. So I was just a little kid and I noticed quite quickly that my parents would get afraid when I would say or do certain things. And to me, it felt very much like a push away when they would get scared of whatever I did or said. And so I learned very quickly what not to say and what not to do because they really didn't like that feeling of being pushed away or rejected when they felt afraid of me. And I things that it would happen. I wouldn't. It wasn't like a knowing before it came out of my mouth. I would just blurt it out, and then I would cover my mouth, and I would say things like, "Great Aunt Gladys just died," and I would hear myself say it. I'd look at the clock, 11:30 or 11:28 a.m. Right, and we'd get a phone call a few hours later saying that Great Aunt Gladys died, and the question then was, "What time?" Which is a weird question to ask, right? When you're told your relative has passed, what time did she pass? And it was like 11:30 ish, yeah. So I mean, things like that. It scared my family. It scared them, and so I learned not to say it because I thought that made me not acceptable because that was the feeling that came with that fear that they
yeah.
had. And so I hid it. I tried to make it go away and I would hide it as much as I could, but still things would sometimes blurt out of my mouth. Um, and I think that was something that was happening as I was responding to people's thoughts, not knowing they didn't speak it out loud. And I didn't really think about that until I was an adult and had a child of my own who was doing that, where I was, she had her back to me. She couldn't see my face and she thought I was talking, but I was really just thinking. And she would respond to what I had just thought. And when she did it, I got kind of thrown off guard, a little bit scared. And then I remembered what that felt like to me when I was a small child. And then I completely stopped, like, trying to react. I tried my best not to react like that when she did those things. So my daughter was a very gifted child as well, and she accepts it more than I did because I think I responded a little bit better to her. Probably not 100% the best all the time, but better than my parents did because at least I understood what it was, and my
Yeah,
parents didn't.
it's all communication at the end of the day, innit? And we always think that we're alone in it. When there's actually thousands of people out there, we just don't know 'em. we keep it to ourselves, which it's a revelation when you do realize that there's a community. And I think that's one thing that internet is good for, and it's allowed people to become a community.
Yes,
If it
absolutely.
weren't for this, we'd still be doing exactly what you've just mentioned. We'd still be a bit afraid to open our mouths, really.
And
So it's
really,
good.
it's different now because I always felt like I had to hide myself from everyone in order to be acceptable. Hi, Noreen. Uh, and so I always tried to hide that part of myself, and I was always like, I'm not weird. Hi, Paul. Paul's one of mine too. um,
Evening.
so so I always tried to hide that part of myself. Hi, Sarah.
Sarah.
So that people would accept me, and whenever it would come out in my work accidentally, um people would be saying things to me like, Jen, can you hear what I'm thinking? And I'd say, no, I really can't, because I really couldn't. Sometimes it's rare, I mean, but it does happen, but it's never when I can see their face. I always think they're talking because I hear it like talking.
Yeah, because it's being a natural. It's what they call being a natural. Clairvoyants are the ones that stand up there on stage, and they can do that more than we can. But this is varying degrees and of what we do, really.
Right.
So yeah, that's a good explanation.
And so when clients would say, can you hear me thinking? Because you guys think a question and then you answer it. And I'm like, well, no, I can't hear what you're thinking, but I get an idea in my head of to talk about this now. So at some degree, I'm aware, or being guided to what to talk about. But whether that be channeling or just aware that that's what they needed to know about, that remains the question. Because I do channel, and somebody recently asked me, who am I channeling? Is it one specific person or being, or is it different people at different times? And to be honest with you, I usually don't know exactly who it is. And sometimes but I am aware, like a lot of times it's Native Americans that from a long time ago. And they'll just fill my room with all these old spirits. And sometimes I'm aware that they're there, and sometimes I'm just receiving information from them. And when that happens, my right ear just goes red, like almost purple, and it's on fire. But if it's more of I would say angelic information, then it's my left ear.
That's surprising.
And
Oh,
so,
that's different.
yeah. So, I mean, I think every psychic develops their own vocabulary and their own way of interacting with their spirit guides. And different things will mean different things to different people. And I think that's the way it's supposed to be. I had a client one time who came in to see me, and she was a nurse practitioner. Over here, that's like a doctor, but not quite. But they act as doctors. They work as doctors pretty much. I don't know if you have that over there in England. Do you have that? No?
No, it's holistic. We call it holistic therapy. So
Well, these nurse practitioners, they work underneath a doctor, and it's cheaper to hire them than it is a doctor. So they have more nurse practitioners seeing patients, and then the doctor's just like looking over the charts to make sure that they did it right. That's how that goes. So anyway, this client of mine was a nurse practitioner, and she was having a medical problem. And as I was working on her doing energy work and massage therapy, she asked if I got any information intuitively or psychically about what's wrong with her, because there was something medically wrong and nobody could figure out what it was. And she didn't tell me what her symptoms were or anything. She just said, we just can't figure out what's wrong. And so I started working on her, and I asked the question in my mind, what is wrong? What is the medical problem here? What is happening? And I suddenly see a picture in my mind of this girl with an umbrella. And it's the same picture of the girl on the Morton's salt container, which is the salt that my mom always used to buy. And when I was a kid, she'd show me the salt container with this girl with this umbrella. And she'd say, this is the kind of salt you buy, Jennifer. When you go buy your salt, you have to buy this kind. And so I was always like, this girl, this Morton's kind, that's the kind to buy. But what she really meant was the kind with iodine in it. it wasn't necessarily the brand, but to me, it stuck in my mind. This is the girl that, this is the salt that you buy. So as I keep seeing this and I recognize it's the girl from the salt container, I asked my client, well, what are the symptoms of an iodine deficiency? And she went, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
So any other psychic could have seen that picture, and it never would have evaluated to salt and then iodine. That never would have been the answer you came up with unless you had that background. So that psychic vocabulary that you develop with your guides is very specific to you. And that's your own language that you have with them. And that just continues to grow in time and over years until it's really an in-depth language, really, of your very own.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very cryptid. Yeah, I work similarly. But it's usually when I'm doing massage therapy or Reiki.
Yes.
I don't employ that side of things for anything else, really. I try to separate the different treatments and the different things that I do. I mean, tarot, completely different. The cards interact for me for that. So I don't need to do any of that scrying type cryptid stuff. Cryptid, not cryptid. Cryptic. Yeah, it's great. Have we got any questions, Ian? Anybody?
Not questions yet,
No.
but we've got comments.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that happens to me too. When things happen in my house. Actually, my mom lives with me now, and she's been with me since 2011. And she had her friend over one day, and they were sitting at the kitchen table, and I walked by my mother to get to the fridge to get something out of the fridge. And as I got close to my mother, I felt a headache. And so I put my hand over her head where I had felt it. I said, "Oh, Mama, does your head hurt today? You got a headache today?" Mom's like, "Yeah." And her friend's just like, "What's going on here?"
Yeah.
And my mom's like, "Oh, Jen can feel it. She can always feel it if something's wrong. She feels it." And she's like, "What, are you a witch or something?" And Mom's like, "Oh, no, she's not a witch. She's always been able to do this. She always did." And so as an adult, I came out of the psychic closet. And, at first, Mom was questioning, if I was okay or not. But then as I would show her more and more things and they were correct, she stopped questioning it anymore. And she remembered things that I used to say about when somebody would die and, that scary stuff that I used to do when I was very young. So, yeah, but, it scares people. And, when I was really coming out of that psychic closet, now my mom brags about it. She's like, "That's my daughter."
Exactly.
And
So what made you move into holistic therapies such as Reiki and
I felt called. I was always at first, okay, so my daughter was born in 1990 and I was a teenage mother. I was a very young mother. And she was born early. And so she had some medical problems that were going on. She was premature and she had cerebral palsy and she had a learning disability, which we found out as she grew. And, I had something happen, and this is something I rarely talk about, but when she was getting out of the intensive care nursery and finally going to be able to come home, she was supposed to see a pediatrician. But first she saw an occupational therapy because they said she'd have cerebral palsy. And so the occupational therapist, we were in this room and she was showing me how to move her legs and move her arms and stuff to do this therapy for her at home. And then she did one of these where she looked around to see if anybody was near us. And then she started to whisper to me and she said, "Listen to me. This is what you're going to do. You're going to massage her like this 5 times a day, just like this. You do it every single day, every day." And she said, "And you have to hold her all the time. You never put her down. If you have to put her down, somebody else is holding her, but it has to be you most of the time." And she's whispering this to me. And intuitively, I just knew to trust her. And I said, "Okay, yes." And then we went into the room and I was with the pediatrician comes in and he's carrying a shot in his hand. And he says, "Hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so, and I'm your daughter's pediatrician. I'm going to give her her first immunization today. And he shut the door and he walked over to me and he whispered, and I'm telling you, if you ever let them immunize her, she will never have a chance. And I went, and he said, so should I give her her immunization today? And I said, no, thank you. And then he whispered to me again and he said, don't ever believe anything that anyone tells you unless you really want it to be true. Ever. And I took that and I held on to it. And I refused to accept the fact that my daughter had cerebral palsy. I refused to accept the fact that she was disabled in any way, shape, or form, or that she would have a learning disability. Even though at the age of 3, she started public preschool, going to school to work with a physical and occupational therapist because she had cerebral palsy. And she worked with a special ed teacher one-on-one because she was learning disabled. And by the time she started first grade, she was no longer working with an occupational therapist at school because she was doing quite well. And she was almost completely one-on-one with a special education teacher during the day. And she would rarely be in the classroom with the other children who were not learning disabled. And when she started school, I told them, my daughter does not know that she's learning disabled. And you will never tell her that. And they're like, well, you can't do that. I said, oh, yes, I can. And they said, no, you can't. She has to know. She leaves the classroom and she's here much of the day. I said, yes, she knows that. But she thinks she's smarter than everybody else. And that's why she has to have her own teacher. And you will never tell her anything else, ever. And so she grew up believing she was smarter than all the other children. And every year they said that, she was doing very well, but that's because she just worked so hard. And next year she'd probably give up and then she would fail. And I said, I don't believe that for 1 second. And every year they said that. By the time she was in 5th grade, they reduced her amount of special education help. And by the time she reached 7th grade, they took it away completely. She just had a study hall with a special ed teacher and a case manager that would look over her stuff and make sure, like sometimes she would misunderstand the directions on a test. And so she would do it all wrong. But if she understood the directions, she did it all right. So they just re-explained it to her and she took the test again and she passed. So by the time she was in 9th grade, she just had a case manager. She no longer had a study hall because she was getting mad at the study hall teacher for interrupting her. And so I ended up calling the school and I'm saying, thank you for doing such a great job, but can you just look over her shoulder and just watch to see if she's doing it wrong? Don't interrupt her unless she is, because you're making her mad. She says, talk to her like she's stupid, and she doesn't like that. She still did not know that she was classified learning disabled. Oh, by the way, she didn't have cerebral palsy anymore. She doesn't have cerebral palsy anymore. And when she graduated high school in 12th grade, she was actually an adult by that time. And she had moved and was living in her own place. And so they didn't invite me to her individual education meeting. When she was in 11th grade, she was invited to her education meeting. And that was the first time that she was told that she was considered learning disabled. She was so mad at me. And because she was invited to go, and she asked the school, what is this? And they're your individual education meeting. And she's like, what is that? Well, for your learning disability. And she's like, what are you talking about? Oh, she was mad at me. She was so mad. And I said, listen, you've just been everybody's just catching up to what I've always known, that you are 100% perfect. And so that was the first time that she ever struggled in school, was after they told her she was learning disabled. That was the first time she ever struggled. And by the time she was a senior in high school, she had moved out halfway through the year. And so they didn't invite me to her meeting because she was an adult, no longer living in my home. So they just don't invite you. So when she went to her meeting and I wasn't there, she was very upset. Where's my mom? Oh, well, we didn't invite her. And so she was upset that I wasn't there, but they went ahead with the meeting and they had retested her on all aspects of what her learning disability had been. And then I got a phone call, and it was her case manager. And she said, I'm very sorry that we did not invite you to her meeting. she was very upset that you weren't here because we didn't invite you. But that, that's just our policy. We didn't know that she wanted you there, but she did. And she asked if I would call you and tell you what the results were. And I'm very excited to do that. And I said, okay, go ahead. And she said, we've retested her and everything. And she is considered highly above average in every single subject in criteria. And I said, I know. And she said, no, I don't think you've heard me. And she repeated what she said. And I said, no, I heard what you said. And I understand what you said. I've always known that that's true. I've just been waiting for y'all to catch up. And so the important aspect of that is if you tell somebody who and what they are, and if they believe you, that's what they will be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but you've got to have belief in yourself as well. Which
exactly.
She obviously did. Yeah.
Yes. So I understand today that when people turn and start whispering to me, that person doesn't remember doing that later. That's a psychic thing.
Yeah.
And that person, like either my higher self or theirs, beamed into the body and was talking to me. But that person does not remember telling me that later. I know that now because it's happened many times now. But at that time in my life, that was the first time somebody had turned and whispered to me. And I believed it with 100% certainty, without a doubt, ever without a doubt. And I didn't understand that until I was older. Now, today, I can tell you why it worked that I gave my daughter a massage five times a day from head to toe, from the moment she was born until she was, 5 years old. That worked because the part of the brain where the motor skill area is that moves the body for cerebral palsy, that a lot of it had been damaged. But by massaging her multiple times a day, I was forcing her brain to think about these body parts, and the areas of her motor skill area of her brain actually that were not damaged were connecting to these body parts. So the more I touched her, the more I massaged her, the more I stimulated those areas, it was forcing her brain to connect areas that were working well to those areas. And that's why she grew out of cerebral palsy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's very good analogy for Reiki, to be fair, and massage therapy.
So that's how I got into massage. And I didn't actually go to school for it till I was 28 years old.
Yeah.
And then I became a professional. And I had been doing it for a long time with my daughter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I learned in a massage parlor. But I learned it nevertheless. And it's same with tarot. I learned quite a lot through that that experience, shall we say. Mm-hmm. But I'm same as you. It comes instinctively, and I think that's true of all practitioners, really. If you can learn something, let's face it, you can learn something, but to be really good at it, I feel that you have to put more than the physical into it. I really do. But with that, I didn't see that one.
Interestingly enough, I didn't learn Reiki until much later in my career. And I was being accused of doing Reiki by Reiki masters who were coming in to get massage. They were accusing me of doing Reiki. And I was like, I don't do Reiki. I'm not weird. Nope. I was still in the psychic closet. I didn't do anything questionable like that. There was no energy, anything going on. I'm just giving you a massage. That's it. But they were feeling an energy transfer that I wasn't aware of. And it came to my attention that I was a natural born healer, and I was giving away my own life energy when I was touching these people. And so they would come, maybe I'd have a client that came in with a hip pain and they left without it, and I had it. And I was sick all the time. I was always tired. I always had a headache. I had pains and aches, and irritable bowel syndrome. I was sick all the time. Once I learned Reiki, that all stopped. All of it stopped because I was no longer giving away my own energy, learning how to take in extra energy and give that to my clients instead of my own. So, I mean, if anybody's a natural born healer, I highly suggest you learn how to do Reiki and you stop giving away your own energy. I think people who are empaths, those who feel what other people feel, I think they are to some degree a natural born healer to one degree or another. And I think every one of them should learn Reiki so that they can learn not to absorb other people's stuff. So many empaths out there think it's a curse to feel what other people feel, right? And it's really not. I felt that way too, until I just allowed it to develop, until I embraced my extra senses and allowed that to just blow up into what it became. And so there's no way to dumb it down, really. The only way is to embrace it and let it develop and become what it is. And once you become more of a full empath, you have more control of it. And
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
I think analogy for me is glass half full rather than glass half empty. And it's that mindset. And if you give people that mindset as well as treating them physically, you're onto a winner.
so like in your practice, perhaps this is part of your practice as well. So a lot of times people come see me when they're feeling upset about something that happened at work or in their personal life. They just want to feel better. They come in to see me. And I will, at that, I didn't know I was doing this at first. I wasn't conscious of it, that I was doing it. And then it was brought to my attention by somebody else and I paid attention, and they were right. I was actually affecting how people were feeling. And so I literally can, now that I know that I can do that, literally I'll just hold myself, make myself feel extreme calm inside of myself. And I will wrap that energy around my client. So if they're upset, then I'll wrap them in my calm, and then they feel calm. And then we talk about what's bothering them. What happened at work today? What did your boss say? What did your coworker? What happened? And we talk about it, and they are without the upset feelings that they had when they came in. And they're just more rational about what happened and more objective. They can see it objectively. And after we're done discussing it, I let them go. I let their energy back to just themselves. And then they just feel better about what happened because they got to see the situation without all of their hurt feelings and all of their upset feelings.
Realignment, isn't it? It's realignment of everything, just
Yes.
physically and mental.
Yes.
That's the biggest part of it, is that mental transfer.
Yeah.
I feel anyway. And they do feel better for it. There's one thing I do tend to do as well, because I don't know about where you are, but over here, people are 90% underhydrated. So I always, after a treatment, give them a glass of water. And I won't let them leave until they've drank it. And it's surprising just how simple a practice that is as well. Rehydrating.
Water is life.
It is.
Yeah, I'll
It
probably
is.
not
I knew you were
I'll
gonna say
spend all
that.
day at work without drinking that much. But there you go.
Yeah. But it's surprising what a difference it can make. It really can. Something as simple as that. And it's a gift. That's what I was going to ask you next is, do you consider it a job or a gift?
Well, I think it's important to know that this is how I do make my living. And there should be an energy transfer, because when I used to think that I should just give it away all of the time, there was an imbalance in that energy. And there will always be more takers than you have anything to give. And they will take and take and take until you have nothing left. And I learned that the hard way. And so, there has to be some type of energy transfer. I don't charge for everything that I do all the time. Like if I feel guided that this person just needs this, just do it, then I do. Because I ask a lot of favors of spirit. I ask a lot of favors of angels, and sometimes they ask favors back. And I think that's the give and take, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So, I mean, even if I'm out shopping and I come up next to somebody in the aisle of the shopping mall or the Walmart or whatever, and all of a sudden I feel guided to say something to this person who's an absolute stranger to me, I will automatically just do it because I'm being asked to do this favor, right? And so I might turn and say, "Your grandmother said," whatever, or it's under the sink, under the board, under the sink, or something like that. I'm not asking for this to happen, it just does. Or I'll just say, I hope you have a better day, honey, or something like that. And I never tell them who I am. I don't give them my name. I don't give them my card. Maybe I give them a little pat or even a hug, and I'm on my way. And if everybody who is even a little bit gifted out in the world, if everybody followed those guidances to do that for a stranger, can you imagine how many strangers will come up and give support and comfort to somebody having a bad day? Could be 5 or 6 or 7 strangers in a row approaching someone, showing them that they are completely surrounded with love, even when they feel all alone. And I think that's so important.
Utterly agree.
When I teach my Reiki students, I always tell them to follow those guidances and absolutely do not give them your name or your card or anything, because when you do that, they're going to think that you want something from them, because everybody always thinks that you want something from them. But if you don't tell them who you are, you don't give them a way to contact you, you just do something kind and you walk away, they might be thinking, well, what does she want? But you've walked away. There's no way you could ask for anything at that point. They don't even know who you are. And that's when
I do think that is a geographical thing as well, because where I live, it's more accepted. I know between me and Ian, certain big smoke in London, they would walk straight over you. Totally different mindset in different places, different areas of the world, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you wouldn't get that here. If there was somebody needed something, the community, one way or another, would help them.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a lovely place to live. We call it God's own country, believe it or not, and it's middle of Yorkshire. England, green and pleasant land. There's loads and loads of stories from this part of the world. You wouldn't think that they originated here at all. You know, he's so unassuming. It's such an unassuming place, but the mindset is good. Fortunately, it needs to spread because it's getting smaller. It's getting smaller when it should be. Through social media, people are getting further apart, which is surprising. Yeah. We should be closer, but we're not. That connection.
I've made such amazing friends on social media that I just cannot wait to meet in person. And it's such a blessing for me to get to meet these people in person when we get to be in the same place. I'm like, oh, this is my friend. And it's some of the closest people that I have are friends on social media who I'd never met.
Yeah, but if we didn't have social media, you'd be meeting people every day. We tend to forget that, you know.
Yeah.
The actual meeting of people through social media is a lot less than what it would be without. And it's become so commonplace as social media that we take it for granted that, yeah, that's great. This is how things should happen. But I remember before social media, yes, I'm that old. But we didn't go out. We went out every day. We went out to meet people, to speak to people in person. You weren't on a screen. So we need to get back to that, meetings and what. I think you still have what they call, I don't know what the term is, but where people go out and just meet.
A date?
Certain. One of them. Oh, one of them is. but yeah, I get what you're saying, but it needs to happen more often. There's just not enough places. I mean, kids today, they don't have youth clubs. We had youth clubs. We always used to get together and have a good few hours, loads of us in same room. Whereas there's none of that anymore. People are just sitting in the rooms on games and talking on screens, you know. So you've got a good mindset, so you make that effort to go and meet people, but not everybody does that. They just sit there and talk to people. It's the way I see it.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. But if it wasn't for social media, you and I would never have met.
This is true.
Precisely. Yeah, this is true. This is true. It's what you do with it. But it's
Me
what you do.
and Brian wouldn't have met.
Yeah, exactly. And we've had some conversations, some good conversations. We've helped each other with some conundrums. That's a big word. That's my big word for the night. Conundrum. It's brilliant. I think it's fantastic. It's the paranormal world. I wouldn't call it. There's a lot of this. Now I'm going to get into trouble now, aren't I? Because I don't agree with this.
Here we go.
I don't agree with this para-unity that's been bandied about and whatever, because it's not really. It's not really about that. People tend to be, I want to get my story across. So they'll use that as an excuse. Really, it's not about that. Para-unity should be about what we're doing now, what we're doing, talking and getting that word out and making people enlightened to the paranormal world. That's para-unity for me.
Yeah.
I think one of my...
Say that again, sorry?
I think that for me, I really love asking other psychics or intuitives or empaths how the information comes through to them. Like, to describe that to me, because perhaps that's not the way that I'm receiving information. And by learning that that's how that comes through to them, I can open my awareness to such things, and maybe I'll start seeing it that way too. So I love sharing that and finding out, well, how did you sense that? How did it come through? What did it look like? What did it feel like? That I love asking those questions just so that I can see if it's something different.
Yeah, I mean, as I've said to Brian in the past, I mean, I class myself more as a sensitive these days, because the certain little snippets of mediumistic things I get is random. But like you were saying about how a message is given to you, me, it would be through music, because I used to be a DJ, so my head is full of useless song lyrics, and I'll be asking a question in my head that I want the answer to, and I will get in the car, and the first song I hear on the radio answers the question, and that's, that happens quite a lot with me. So that's one way I get it. And then, of course, I just get random stuff, random thoughts in my head, which that to me mean absolutely nothing at the time, but then I find out why. Yeah, so
I get a mixture of all sorts. Similar to you, Jen, in some cases, but similar to you as well, Ian, in other cases. And then there's the unique ones where I'm just laid in bed, basically. Laid in bed, that I'm not communicating with anybody, and I probably haven't communicated with anybody for a good few hours. And then all of a sudden, boom. And I need to get in touch with that person that's just popped in my head. So, yeah, that difference is a good thing, and it is good to share that. But yeah, a lot of the times I will just be sat there, not thinking about anything in particular, just either watching TV or watching a screen, or not even doing that sometimes. I just like to relax totally, close my eyes, and let my thoughts take me wherever they want to go. I've had it described from an Australian native that I was going on a dream quest. I says, well, I don't think I don't know, I might have, but whatever I tend to think, whatever pops in there, and it grabs me attention to the point where I have to move and get in touch with somebody, it's usually a message. It usually is a message for them in particular.
Oh, thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun. And you asked me if it was work. I think it's a blessing if you can enjoy doing what you do. And I do enjoy that. Like I say, you're doing what you're meant to do. If you win the jackpot in the lottery, and you would still do those types of things anyway.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Mm.
Yeah, I'd still be stupid enough to go in haunted houses and help people out. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when I was in my 30s, I felt a very large calling back to my reservation. I'm part Native American, and I know I'm very light skinned, and my dad was a tall redhead, and my mom's short, dark little lady, little Indian lady. And and so I felt a huge calling, and it was a very specific calling. I literally was hearing wolves howling where there weren't any. And it's a longer story if you'd like to hear it, how I was called back. But when I was starting to hear wolves howling, I had just learned Reiki, and I was hearing wolves howling all the time. And then within a week, my uncle called, and he's married to my mom's sister. Okay. And so he called me and he said, I need you to come up here to my deer camp and push the deer onto my land. And I said, why? And he said, well, because it's Indian land and there's wolves and they're just not letting the deer onto my land. I can physically see them. They're like herding them away. I need you to come walk the Indian land and push the deer up here. And I said, why me? He says, because you're Indian. And I said, so is your wife and your daughters. Why are you asking me? I mean, it was a considerable journey to go up there. And he'd never called me before. I thought somebody had died when he called, because why is he calling me? And so it was very, very odd. And he just said, I don't know. It just has to be you. Okay. And so then I started looking into, well, can I even walk the land? Because I wasn't a tribal member. And my reservation is very closed. And this was new land that had been given back to the tribe. And from one of the treaties that the government had to do something with it, or they had to give it back. And so I started looking into it, and I found something online where an elder had said something to a reporter about the old ways. And I felt very called to know more about the old ways. And I didn't know that this question was inside of me burning. And so I found this man's phone number and I called him. And in the meantime, I had been reading things online about the Anishinaabe people, knowing that they were the caretakers of the earth, and they had these extra senses to know when something was wrong, when something went out of balance, so that they could put it right again. And so that they were sensing these extra things. So I started thinking, well, gee, maybe there's something wrong with the wolves. Maybe I'm hearing them because they're calling out for help, and maybe there's an imbalance or something. So I call this man. His wife answers the phone, and I ask for him, and he's not home. And so she says, well, I'll have him call you back. And I says, okay. And I said, by the way, are the wolves okay up there? Because this question is just burning in my mind. Are they okay up there? And she's like, I haven't heard anything. Why are you asking me about the wolves? And I said, oh, and I'm realizing now I'm asking something weird. I'm not fully out of the psychic closet at this point. So I'm like, oh, don't be weird. Don't say something weird. And so I'm like, oh, never mind. It was weird. Never mind. And she's like, no, you're going to tell me why you're asking me about the wolves. I said, seriously, no, it's weird. Never mind. And she goes, no, you're going to tell me. She scolded me. And so I said, well, listen, I started hearing wolves howling, and there aren't any wolves here. So I thought maybe there was something wrong with them. And you're the first person I've talked to up there. So I thought I'd ask you if they're okay. And she said, where did you get my husband's name from? And I said, I already told you. I saw something he said to a reporter, and it was on the online article about the old ways. And she says, do you know his Indian name? I said, I don't. And she said, it's Gichimaingan. I said, okay. She says, do you know what that means? I said, I really don't. She said, it means the great wolf. He sent out a call. Apparently, you've been hearing it. And so he calls me back. When he called me back on the phone, the first thing he said was, I could hear you crying out there. How did you get so far away from the water? And he had sent out a call calling me back to the reservation. And that was his howling that I was hearing, calling me back. Wow. And so then I started to learn from him. He was the leader of the Medewan from our tribe, which are the spiritual advisors. Other people might consider them medicine men, but they don't call themselves that. But for outsiders who aren't familiar, that's probably the best way to describe what they are, that people would understand. And I learned from him for several years. And he helped me, coached me to accept my gifts and my abilities, and he coached me into how to open them up further, and he taught me all these native stories that I would have heard if I was raised that way as a child. And it was just a very, very beautiful thing. And I was raised as a Christian, and the things that I didn't understand about Christianity made more sense to me when I learned about native spirituality. They merged together for me in such a beautiful way that it filled in the blanks that I didn't understand, and the parts that I had trouble accepting made more sense when I learned that. If that makes any sense to you. I saw somebody said I had wolf eyes, which is another interesting thing. My mom and I were on a quest to find out who our clan was, because our tribe has clans. And my elder that I told you that I met, he was drilling us, asking who our clan was, and we didn't know. And so we went on a search looking for who our clan was. We went talking to the older people in our family and asking, questions about the old stuff. And most of the time the elders would get very tight-lipped and scared when you start asking them questions, because it was illegal to talk about such things for most of their life. They could have gotten in trouble. They could have gotten us killed for doing that, for answering those questions. So whenever we would start asking those Indian questions, they would be like, oh, no, we're not. And my great uncle would just run out the door. He would run out of the room, very scared that I was even daring to ask such things. And so I felt that very connected to wolves and to eagles. My mother felt connected to wolves. Okay. And so we had been looking at these old pictures that my great uncle had that were of my great grandfather when he was young. And I'd never seen pictures of him when he was young before. He was gorgeous, just a handsome fella. And so my mom and I left there, and we went to the reservation, and we went into the restaurant. And there was these beautiful pieces of art on the wall. And we walked in, and we both just stopped and gasped when we saw this one particular piece of artwork. It was a painting of a man, and half of his face was an eagle. And the man looked identical to the pictures that we had just seen of my great grandfather when he was young. And my mom and I both saw it at the same time, and we just gasped, and we just stood there staring at it, the both of us just in awe that this looked just like my great grandfather. And so I asked the ladies who worked there, I said, where did this artwork come from? And they said, well, this is an artist who's from Canada. And he comes down here, he sits in here, he does his artwork in here. He's actually here. His stuff is right there. He's just out for a little bit. There's Naing and the wolf. And so we stayed in there, and we were waiting for him to come back. And before it was time for dessert, a little sweet after our dinner, this man comes in, and the waitress says, that's him. That's the guy right there. And so my mom and I rush over to him, and we ask him if we could talk to him. And he's like, what do you want? And we asked him who this man was in that painting. Who is that man? And he wouldn't answer us. And we kept pounding him for information. And he just was really wanting to get away from us. And he turned around, and he started to walk away from us. And out of my mouth came a very old woman's voice. And I said, aren't you Anishinaabe? And I said it with such a perfect accent that he gasped and turned around, and he came right up to me, and he looked at me. He said, who are you? What do you want? And I said, we're looking for our clan. And he said, you look like Wolf Clan to me, but you do have eagle hair and eagle eyes. You are both.
Yeah.
But my mother was just Wolf Clan.
Yeah. My dream catcher, Grey Wolf.
Is that your spirit guide?
No. It's just, I'm a believer in when things jump out at you, you take them. As simple as that. Same with my tarot cards. They fell off a shelf, and I caught them. So they're mine for life.
I mean, they jumped out at you.
They fell off the shelf, yeah. They literally fell off the shelf in the shop that I was working in.
Awesome.
They were They were on display and they fell off. And I caught them, and I've had them ever since. But yeah, that grey wolf.
I love it.
Moon catcher. Again, connections into it. It's surprising. Things happen for a reason. I believe anyway.
So my native
Well,
elder told me, he said, when he had taught me everything that he knew how to teach me, he said, I've taught you everything I know. I can't lead you any further. You're going to have to go on without me. And I said, well, how will I know where to go? And he said, you just follow the blessings. Just keep following them. And I said, well, how will I know the blessings? And he said, you call them synchronicities. You follow them and they will continue to be there showing your path. And isn't that the simplest thing ever, but so true? It's always there.
It is. Yeah, and again, such a modern world, and there's so many different religions and nationalities and beliefs out there. We've got to make our own path now, and I think that's what you're doing. You're a trailblazer, bringing the old to the new.
But you know, the thing is about things that are true is that they're always true. No matter which angle you look at them, they're just always true. And so I can find truth in all the beliefs, really. I've looked at different religions and different faiths. Not that I was looking for a new one. It was I was trying to understand the people I was working with.
Yeah,
and as I look for the similarities, they're there.
Yeah.
Because the truth is always true.
Well, exactly. Yeah. We speak different language, that's all.
Yes.
And once you get past that barrier, we've got a universal language. We can get past it. Might take a while, but we can get past it.
Yeah, like yourself, I was brought up Christian, and since I've been in the paranormal field, I've learned to look at the whole picture rather than just what you're taught.
Yeah.
And it does make more sense.
You know, exactly. as in that type of realm, when I am approached by what I would call a lost spirit, one that hasn't crossed over, because there's the lost and then there's the ones who are just back because they wanted to, right? They've already crossed over. So when I'm approached by the lost, or when I encounter the lost, 9 times out of 10, they are here because they ran away from the light.
Yeah.
And they ran away from the light because they were scared of going to hell. And they just weren't sure if they would be forgiven. So they thought, this is better than that. This right here, whatever this is better than that. So they would just continue to run away from the light when it came for them. And so a lot of people psychics who deal with the lost, they'll call in angels and da da da. And I'm like, no, I don't do any of that. Because that's like calling the cops on the party. Yeah. They're going to scatter. Right? If they're afraid of possibly going to hell, you're not going to call the cops on them. You're going to stay and talk with them and see what's wrong. What did you do? What was it that you did that you think is so unforgivable? Show me that. And they'll show me. And then I'll be like, I can forgive you for that. I can forgive you for that. And then I'll tell them the scripture, John 20:23, that says, if you are forgiven, then you are, if anyone forgives you, you are forgiven. And so I'm like, I can forgive you for that. You have nothing to fear. Walk into the light. And I just extend my own light. Because people who are gifted have a stronger light body. It's a brighter, larger light body than just regular people walking around. And so these lost spirits are, attracted to the light, really. And I just extend my light out to my side and I ask them to walk into it. And then they do. So
brilliant. Do you see auras? Can you see auras?
I can see auras. It's not okay. So my teammate on my team, Tammy, she sees auras all the time. Like I think it's hard for her not to see them. I have to sit there and look for a little while before I see them. But every once in a while they pop out at me like unexpected, and then I'm whoa, And I've had students who randomly just spontaneously start seeing auras all of a sudden, and then they get kind of scared, like something's happening,
Yeah, unless you're actually zoning in on that type of thing. I think it tends to be when you see people of your own element, like yours is water, if you see another spirit that's water bound, shall we say, or water element, then you will more than likely see an aura to them, unless you're practicing, as I said, to look at a person's aura. I do see that with some people. That actually accompanies what you were saying earlier about when you've got a message for someone. I can tend to see that aura, and it helps me to pick them out, because there's that many messages. Some days, it's unbelievable. You're walking down a street, and practically everybody there, everybody that you've walked past needs a message, and you think, oh no, keep your mouth shut. So I'll tend to go on that aura. If there's a particular aura, strong aura, I will open my mouth. I'll say something, because it's just reaffirming that they need that message. That's the way I practice. And again, like you say, everybody's different. So
It's beautifully different. I think it's wonderful. It's not a competition.
yeah,
We all do our own part.
exactly. But there's also a lot of what we were talking about other day, Ian. Muggles. I love that word.
Muggles.
I think it's fantastic. Fantastic word, that muggle, for the non-sensitive. But they deserve and need as much as what we do. So, I don't differentiate. It's just a word that's well, it describes it, doesn't it? Non-sensitive. A muggle. I love it. Harry Potter did something right.
For me, I prefer to stay in the company of other psychics that are closer to me, I guess, because I feel like I can really be myself, and I don't have to change the way I would describe something. I can just say it the way it is, and without worry that they're going to not understand or misunderstand. And so I really enjoy being with other psychics and having, it's amazing how many more experiences that you have together and how much stronger you feel together, really.
Yeah, exactly. I think we need more forums as well. That's some of it's not done, not podcast wise. Maybe somebody could do something with it. It's something that they have. Spiritualists, they'll do forums in a spiritualist setting, rather than on the multiverse, on the big wide web. It's new to me. I mean, up to 2 years ago, I'd never have thought about doing a podcast. So it's all new to me, even though we're 2 years down the line. It still surprises me. So, anywho, on that note, it's gone. That hour's gone. Where's it gone?
Whizzed.
It's been
and
fantastic.
Ian barely said a word.
Well, Brian, when I don't say a lot, it's because I'm listening and enjoying what I'm hearing. Very interesting.
Well, thank you for having me, guys. This was fun.
Hopefully we'll do it again.
Definitely.
Expand on some of the things that you've talked about. Most definitely.
Absolutely.
Especially the light side of things, like Paul was saying. He's glad that you explained it that way, because it's surprising. Until you hear an explanation, you're confused. You don't know exactly what's going off. So it's good to enlighten people. For
sure. I think that I'd like to invite everybody to come to my YouTube channel.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's I go looking for Bigfoot in my spare time with my girlfriends, and we together form a group called the She Squatchers, and so you can find us on YouTube, She Squatchers Official. Please come subscribe to our channel and come check out our lives.
Definitely.
Yeah, that would be fun.
We'll come and have a natter as well if you want.
What's that?
We'll come and have a natter.
But I don't look at it very often.
You see, we do have cryptids. We do have cryptids here,
Yeah.
but not the Bigfoot or the Sasquatch.
Ah, but you
Um,
do. You do. I know Andy McGrath. He wrote Beasts of Britain, the book, and he
Yeah.
says
Yeah.
you have them. He says that you have them there.
Well, I've not seen any evidence to that. Yes, we do have quite a few different types of cryptid.
We have a lot of
we've got
elementals
Dogman.
here.
Yeah, got Dogman. We've got big cats.
And what do the
Um,
elementals look like to you?
Oh, to me personally, there's so many. We've lost a lot visually to most people because they've gone into hiding, haven't they? Really, everything from fairies to I've seen fairies. My sister's seen fairies, and she's a non-sensitive. She's a muggle, but she's seen fairies at the bottom of the garden. We've got some famous cases for fairies here. There is water sprites as well. We've got some names for them. What is it? Kelpie, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's some famous ones. Some people think Loch Ness is a Kelpie. There's loads. There's loads, and there's loads of evidence, but it's not substantial enough. But we will get there. We will find it, and we will document it. That's part of the fascination, isn't it? So getting that evidence.
Well, I sent you pictures of the fireball in the water. What would you call that over there? What do you know what that's called?
That's just a water sprite to me. It's a sprite. But that's what we would call it. That's what I would call it. But yeah, different places, different names.
Exactly. That's why I like to ask questions.
Yeah, but that's a sprite where I come from.
Okay.
A water sprite related to fairies, but of the water.
And if
See,
you're
fairies,
an island, it's the fairy.
fairies are air. So, but they've got their own. You've got your wood sprites as well that live in trees that are very similar. So every element there's an equivalent sprite. That's what I've noticed anyway. Anyway, have we got another show behind us? Because if we have, we're going to have to go.
I'm not sure. I don't think we have, but
that's good. That's good. Don't want to step on anybody's toes. We get told off. But yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic, Jen, and it's and hopefully we'll do it again.
That sounds wonderful. I love that.
Yeah, and maybe we could join your show and talk about cryptids from this country.
Yes, we should do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we'd love to have you. Let's set that up.
Yeah,
we are live at 9 p.m. Central Time, which I think is going to be really late in the night for you guys.
I've done many American shows at like 3-4 in the morning.
Well, good.
There you go then. We're sorted.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
It was 2:00 in the afternoon here when we started here tonight, and I know it's time for you guys.
Wow.
Yeah, it's coming up for 9. Well, it's 9, just left 9 o'clock, so PM, which is early for us.
Yeah, it's preparation time for the night to come. That's what the time.
Well, exactly. I mean, we do investigations, so obviously we're used to the night. So, and I think a lot of that, we talked about this on another show as well, that the time that we do investigate, why do most people decide to investigate on a night? Spirits about at any time of day. It's for the film. It's for film aspect, isn't it? It's for that atmosphere on tape.
Yeah, and it's also for contamination reasons as well. There's less noise at night.
Depending where you are.
Yeah, true.
Depending where you are. I mean, there's places I've been that it's definitely quiet in the middle of the day. So,
I'm quite comfortable walking about in the dark anyway.
Yeah, me too. And as I say, it looks better on tape for muggles. Gonna keep saying that word, isn't
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, spirits about any time of day or night, so doesn't make a difference to me. Anyway, on that note, thank you for joining us, and we will do it again.
Thank you guys. I hope you have a good evening.
Yep. See you
Thank
all
you.
next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye for now.